having all those hormones in my body, like my body just really did not enjoy that whole process. And my whole life I've been telling my body, don't fall pregnant, don't fall pregnant. And now I was like, okay, no, fall pregnant, fall pregnant. I was like, it's really confused. Well, not fall pregnant, but let's get some eggs.
I am so excited to welcome our next guest. I feel incredibly grateful because I am part of this platform where Sharni had reached out to me and had sent me a really nice message, really resonated with the podcast. And I so appreciate that. And she is going to share her journey and a lens that I think is so, and a perspective that is so incredibly important to share with our audience. And before we do that, I want to share a little bit of a snippet of the message that I got from Sharni when she initially reached out, which I think resonates so deeply with me, and I think with a lot of people. So before we jump in, I do want to share that. And part of the message was, I'm deeply passionate about inspiring women to do things a different way. And if life doesn't turn out as planned, it often never does, then how to navigate it so that we are still happy and fulfilled, possibly even if we are not mothers. So I guess I want to start there. I want you to share your journey because I think it is so empowering and helpful and inspiring and really important for women to hear.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Beth. And it's so wonderful to be on the show. And like I said, when I first listened to your podcast, I was like, oh, I'm just blown away that somebody is really focusing on this and focusing on women and supporting women at this age, going through what we go through between 35, 45, this age, or even building up to that. And I find that life so often doesn't work out the way we thought it was going to, or the way we were planning. And that's definitely my journey. And so that's why I'm so passionate about inspiring other women. And I'd love to share this with you. I've got a free checklist that I'd love to share with your listeners, which is essentially like my makeover checklist, which is like how to do things in a different way, or how to see things in a different way, because life, it doesn't work out the way we think it should. And we all try to live this fairy tale, and it's just not the reality. And so that's very much my journey. And my journey is about, like reinventing my life. And the first thing that I talk about on my checklist is about letting go. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that letting go of the story we thought we were going to be living, and that life that we thought we were going to be living, the marriage, the kids, the, happily ever after. And yeah, that definitely wasn't my journey. And that's why I'm also so passionate about talking about it. So yeah, I'd happily share a little bit about my story along the way.
This idea of letting go of the vision when it was so ingrained in us, and kind of we've internalized that message of like, how did you, if you could share like how you did your own work to let go of the vision, and how maybe you work with women to let go of the vision, because I think that can be the hardest part sometimes, is accepting where you're at versus where you thought you would be.
Totally. And yeah, it's a big shift, because we think life is going to look some way, and then it looks a total different way. And the big thing for me, and we were talking about that earlier, is about the grief, like really grieving and being able to say, this didn't work out. And that's okay for me to feel sad, to feel like I'm allowed to grieve for that. And going through that grieving process, whatever that means for you. And there's so many beautiful tools and so many amazing tools that I work with my clients on really releasing that. But we've got to really feel the feelings of it as well. And then once we've really processed and we're working through that grieving process, it's then about rewriting our story, going, okay, well, that didn't work out the way that I thought it would. But what do I have? What am I grateful for? What have I got in my life? And what can I then do that makes me feel fulfilled and loved and seen and heard, and all those things that we feel like we might not be having because we don't have a family or a husband or all those other things. And so how can I live a very full life in a way that might have looked very different to what it did before? And so it's about then reworking that, and releasing limiting beliefs is a big part of that, and that whole old story, and rewriting that new story and what that would be. And so that's the part that I love working with my clients, is about, okay, what is your purpose then? If you thought your purpose was, I'm going to be a mom to 5 kids, and that hasn't happened, then let's rediscover what else makes you feel fulfilled, and what else do you want to do. And just because you're not a mom doesn't mean that your life is meaningless. So yeah, looking at things in a whole different way.
Yeah, I think that's incredible what you said. And I think doing that work to rewrite the vision. So I'd love for you to share your personal journey, because I imagine it informs your work in such a beautiful way that not only can you help women shift, but you can say, I get it, I relate, I've had to do the work and the shifting and the rewriting of the vision myself. So I'd love for you shared with me your journey in the initial message, and then when we got on the call, but I would love for you to share it here, because I think it is really powerful. It inspires, it brings hope to other women. It's like empowering to know, like, you love your life. You have a very beautiful life. So I'd love you to share with the audience your journey.
Thank you, Beth. So yeah, I mean, the journey really started when I got divorced at 30. Well, we just signed the papers just after my 30th birthday, and I was devastated, because I was like, this is not how my life was going to be, going. And I was the first person in my family, and my friends and family friends, anybody that I knew, that was getting divorced. So it wasn't exactly an easy choice, and I felt like I was letting people down. I felt so guilty about it. I felt like, this is wasn't part of my dream life. And I remember so many people saying to me, oh, but you're still so young, there's lots of time to find another husband and still have kids, and you'll be fine. And the years went by, and I dated a few people, but I never really connected with someone on that level where I really wanted to have children with them. And I got to like 30, I think I was about 36, 37. And now the alarm bells are going, because everyone says at 35 your eggs start shriveling up and you're going to have no hope of having kids. And there wasn't really a prospect of, okay, what is this going to look like? Because those years between 30 and 36, I just piled my whole life into my work and building my company. And I was like, I don't need a man. I can do this all on my own. And I was in full superwoman mode. I didn't have time or energy to put into a relationship. And so it now got to me being about 36 years old and going, okay, well, maybe I should freeze my eggs then, because this is what you should do at this age, and be responsible and have that as insurance. And so a friend and I went to go and see the doctor together. And she gave us, she was amazing. And she just gave us all this insight and a lot of knowledge around what this entails. Yeah, she was incredible. And so we both did the tests on our eggs. And my friend had this abundant amount of eggs that she could be using. And mine were like, okay, not so many. So I decided that it was important to freeze them. And so I did my whole egg freezing process at 37. And I remember, I think she would
37 was I did my egg freezing.
really amazing. Yeah, I think by that age, it's like, okay, we really need to focus on, having this as a backup. And the doctor, she wanted to get, I think it was about 12 eggs from that first process, and we got 2. So I got 2 little eggs that were ready for me when I was ready for them. And she said, we will need to do this process about 6 or 7 more times to get the amount of eggs that you will need. And I was like, there's no ways. I'm not doing that.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what that was like for you. One, to hear what you got, but 2, then to hear you have to put your body, your emotions, yourself through this 6 or 7 more times. What was that like for you to hear that?
Devastating, because first of all, having all those hormones in my body, my body just really did not enjoy that whole process. And my whole life I've been telling my body, don't fall pregnant, don't fall pregnant. And now I was like, okay, no, fall pregnant, fall pregnant. I was like, it's really confused. Well, not fall pregnant, but let's get some eggs. And and so it was really confusing, exhausting, emotional. I just cried through that whole month process. I was actually dating. I had a beautiful boyfriend at the time, and he was really supportive in this whole process. Obviously, I was just doing this for me, but I was very grateful to have him there. But he must have thought I was crazy at the time. So I was just an absolute
A lot. It's so much. And I always say this, like it confronts you in so many ways. And until you're actually in it, like you don't know what to anticipate or to expect or how your body's going to react to emotions, to the hormones, or like where you're going to be on an emotional level. So it's definitely helpful to have a nice support system as you go through it.
Totally. And my parents were so amazing and so supportive, and they were the ones who were encouraging it in the beginning. And so it was an interesting process. And then so we got our 2 eggs, which we called Egbert. We named them, and we put them in the freezer, and we had them there for insurance. So I was like, okay, we can, now I can carry on with my life. And I really do take my hat off to ladies who do IVF over and over and over again and put themselves through that, because I got to experience a little bit of that. And I'm just like, wow, the strength that it must take from an emotional point of view and just from a physical point of view, it's absolutely huge. And financially as well. It's like all of it is just really intense. Yeah. So that was that whole journey. And I was like, okay, I've done that. Let's move on. And I got to, in my 40s. And then I was just like, why am I putting my whole life on hold because I was, as I said, I was in this whole like running my business, but I also wasn't doing a lot of traveling that I could have been doing. Because at that time I had a whole wellness company, and I was taking ladies over to Bali on wellness retreats, and I had my own studio, my yoga studio in Cape Town in South Africa, and I could have traveled so much more, but I kept on always thinking, but what if I'm pregnant next year? Or what if I'm with a partner? What if I'm married? And so I felt like I put my whole 30s kind of on hold, waiting for this to happen.
Yeah, that's such an interesting, I think that's important to talk about too, because I've seen that a lot in my own journey in the work I do as a therapist with women in their 30s, this idea of like this waiting, like we're waiting for these things to happen. We're waiting to meet the person. We're waiting to have the babies. And, I do a lot of work with clients, and it's not easy. And I know, the stories that you've shared about your journey, like shifting out of that, like, stop we trying to say like life is happening now, you have to live now, and like moving out of the waiting, and really sort of the ripple effect and impact when you can shift out of the waiting to the living actually like really does start happening.
And it's so important to do it that way as well. And so at some point after this whole experience of freezing my eggs and working myself, to death, and I actually burnt out completely. So I had this big burnout. I think at the time I was running like 2 to 3 wellness companies. And as I said, doing it all on my own, going, I don't need, help and support from a man. I think I'd broken up with this boyfriend by that stage. And I was like, I can do this all by myself, and totally, totally, totally burnt out. And it was just before that I froze my eggs. And so I was now an absolute mess, couldn't actually run my business. And so I was running a retreat in Bali. I did 3 retreats in a row. And at that last retreat, I just decided I'm not going home. I'm staying here. I'm going to heal. I'm going to look after myself and recover from this burnout and chronic fatigue and everything else that I'd inflicted in my life. And so, so I sold my business. I did all sorts of things and just like sold one business, gave one business up, just like got out of my flat. And I was just like, I'm staying in Bali. And I spent 3 months focusing on my own burnout recovery journey and my own healing journey. Yeah, it was pretty intense because I was working with a lot of the Balinese healers, the local healers, the acupuncturists, but it was amazing, amazing experience. And I just totally switched off my life essentially for almost a year. I was off social media for almost a year and just focused on my own healing journey, which was such a blessing.
Well, and when you and I talked previously, like I just like gave you so much props for doing that, because I think we can all get really stuck in the burnout and the grind and keep hustling. And like I think as women, we have very expansive capacities, so like we can do a lot, but do we actually have to do a lot? And when you and I spoke, I was in this process of stepping back, and we talked about like from a little bit of my clinical work and just emotionally as people that are helping other people like the narratives that go into that and the guilt. And like, I just thought it was, and think it's so incredible. And I said this to you on the phone as well, that you gave yourself the permission to take that step back and say to yourself, like, I am so burnt out. Like, I need to do this for myself. And you did it. And I think that's really, I feel like, such an important message too, because again, I think as women, we have expansive capacity, we can take on a lot, but we do find ourselves in this burnout. And even when we're there, it's so hard to give the permission to take the space, to take the break that we need. So incredible that you did that. And I know that you integrate that into your work. You do talk a lot about burnout.
Definitely, because I feel like that's what so many of us are facing nowadays, especially women. Because a big part of our journey as women is that we have this monthly cycle that we tend to just ignore and pretend that it doesn't exist or get really irritated with. And it's so important to really tap into that. And so, with the work that I do, especially with my ladies, is really, you know, focus on cyclical living. And when it is our moon time, being able to really go into that hibernation mode and take 3 days off and, you know, do what you need to do to be more in that winter kind of space and look after ourselves and nurture ourselves. And not everybody has the capacity to leave and go off to Bali for a few months to heal and recover. But I also want to share that, like, at that time in my life, I didn't have that capacity either. I didn't have the means to do it. And I was just like, okay, this is a non-negotiable. My health right now is a non-negotiable, and this is important. And it's not like I had all this money floating around, or, you know, I felt like I was letting my clients down that were back at home. And so it wasn't an easy decision to make. But it's almost like my body was saying, this is the only choice. There is no other, you know, no other way. And so this is it. If you're not doing this, then you're going to land up in some mental clinic somewhere. And that wasn't an option. So yeah, it was so necessary.
Yeah, it's interesting, like what our body will tell us, and like on a very smaller scale. Like before, I was in school to be a therapist. I was bartending in the city. I was coaching. I was doing 800 million things nonstop around the clock. And every so often, I think it would be like once a month or once every other month, my body would just like, nope. And I couldn't get out of bed for like a day or 2 days. And it was my body that finally told me, enough, like, you need to rest. It wasn't my mind. So it's interesting, like this idea of like, at some point that your body is not going to give you a choice. Like, you have to rest.
Totally. And so often we ignore those little messages when they're little whispers or taps on our shoulders. And then eventually you feel like you've been ridden over by a bus. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay, that was what those little messages were for.
It's so true. It's so true. So tell me, okay, so you take this time off, you take time to heal yourself, you give yourself permission to step back and focus on your health. What Tell us after that, what was next for you?
So COVID then happened. Well, actually, then I came back to Cape Town and decided Bali's not going to be home. So I came back, sold everything, got everything organized, officially moved to Bali. And that was about a year before. It was like at the end of 2018. So I was there for about a year before everything shut down, the world shut down. And so luckily I'd already done all of that. I'd got rid of a whole lot of stuff. I just had like 4 suitcases. My life was very simple, very light. And then the world shut down, and I'd already sold my company and put everything online, which I'd organized the year before. So I just felt like my angels were looking after me. And I had this amazing time in my life where, you know, Bali wasn't really affected that much with the pandemic. And so the island was closed to tourists coming in. So we had all these islands to explore. We had amazing villas to stay in at ridiculous prices. And at that time, I was dating this wonderful Italian guy. So we literally just traveled around the islands, you know, that year, which was an amazing experience. And so, like I said, life doesn't work out how we organized or how we wanted to or trying to control it. But there I was, you know, the rest of the world is in a tiny little shoebox that they're totally stuck in. And here I am, like, just going like, wow, this is my life. And half the time I've got all these photos that I still haven't posted because I'm still feeling bad and guilty about this amazing life we have.
No, post them, put them up there.
Yeah, well, now I'm over that now. But at that time, it was just the most phenomenal experience and such a beautiful year. And I felt so held by the universe, really. And towards the end of that year, actually. And I haven't really shared this with many people, so but I would love to share this with you and your listeners. Um, I then made the decision to unfreeze my eggs. So this was now a few years later. How old would I have been? I can't even remember. But in my, let's say, early 40s, probably like 41, 42. And I just made the choice of, because, with egg freezing, payment comes up every year and you got this reminder about it all. And the year before, I was like, am I going to really use those? And so this time it came around again. And I remember thinking, when I did the freezing of the eggs, I was so stressed out. And my body was so drained and depleted and exhausted. And since then, I've learned so much. I've done many yoga teachers trainings, and on my yin yoga teachers training, you learn that the chi, or like the life force in your body, as the man and the woman, when you conceive, that chi is then passed to the baby. So the child, if you're all vital and have all this energy, and you're healthy and you're looking after yourself, then that baby's going to get that energy and that chi. And at the time when I froze my eggs, I was an absolute mess. And burnt out and depleted and exhausted and stressed and overworked, and it was all my own doing because I was my own boss. But this is how it worked. And so
We do, but we do this to ourselves.
and I just think at the time, like those two little eggs that I got were so stressed out and shriveled up. And I thought, yes, they were younger, but I was in a healthier space years later. So I thought, you know what, I would rather let this happen naturally if this is what's meant to happen, instead of then doing the whole process of now putting the eggs inside me. So I was like, okay, so let's let them go. So I did this beautiful ceremony, let go of the eggs. My dad was like, oh my word, you're murdering Egbert. We unfroze them. And funny enough, then the boyfriend that I was with, we started discussing, because we always said we weren't going to have kids. Then we started chatting about it and decided, okay, let's give this a try. And there's a whole another story, but it'll take way too long to explain all of this. But yeah, there was this moment where I was like, I know that this is part of the bigger picture. This is meant to happen. And we have created this beautiful conscious conception ceremony, and we did that, and we had this most amazing experience. And I was like, I wonder if that was the moment. And as I thought that, there was this huge big like lightning strike and thunder, and I was like, oh, okay, no, she's here. And literally 2 days later, I could feel this little soul like inside me. It was the most incredible experience. And so for a few weeks, because yeah, she didn't go full term. So for a few weeks, I felt such a beautiful connection with her, and I got a download of her name and everything. It was just the most like spiritually incredible, yeah, magical experience. And I felt so grateful that I had that experience, because I'd never been pregnant, before that. I didn't know what everyone felt like. I didn't know what everyone was talking about. And I had these few weeks with her when I was just like, wow, this is what it is. And it was amazing. And then, then the relationship that what I was in was quite toxic at that time. And we were fighting a lot. And I just remember one moment thinking like, this is not the situation I want to be in or bring a child into. And that evening I went to yoga, and when I came home, then everything kind of came out of me. And it was just like this whole process of like, oh, okay, that was that then. And yeah, so that was another whole journey of experiencing what it was like as a woman having a miscarriage, being pregnant, and I never thought that was going to be part of my journey. And so going through that obviously then takes another whole journey of healing, and broke up with the boyfriend and did a whole year of womb healing. And thank goodness I was still in Bali. So now I was like seeing all my healers and really focusing on my healing, the womb healing, the healing of, the soul, and letting her pass through. And it was literally a whole year. And I got to this point where I was doing another yin yoga teachers training, and we in this yin class, it was the first day, and we've got 3 hours of lying. I don't know if you know much about yin yoga. Do you do yin yoga at all, Beth?
I don't. I do yoga, but I don't know much about yin yoga. If you could share a little here, what differentiates it? I mean, if you could do it I don't know how involved it is. But yeah, I would love to learn more. It sounds so impactful.
So yin it's very slow. You do like 5 yoga poses in the whole hour and a half or so. This was a 3-hour session. It's very gentle. You've got pillows and props, and you're literally like hugging a pillow on the floor for the whole class. It's amazing. It is so good for like lowering our central nervous system and just like really getting you into like full relaxation mode. So we're now in this training. It's like a long yin session, and I just am crying through the whole thing. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know why I'm crying. Like nothing's particularly wrong at the moment in life. Life's all good. But then something made me think of like, go and check your diary. And at the end of the session, I went back, looked at my diary, and it was exactly a year when she left and when I had the miscarriage. Exactly a year to the day. And I don't remember the date. Yeah, that was so powerful.
Oh my God. It's so incredible how our bodies work, and like when we tune into our bodies or what our bodies try to tell us. And like that's such an incredible story of like having those emotions coming up and not connecting to why, because maybe on surface everything is going well and you've grieved and you feel like you've healed, and to go back and see like your body is telling you like this was the date. Wow.
The date. And that whole year, like if I was doing meditation or breath work, she would always come through and would have like, it was beautiful. I felt so connected to her. But after that session, it was kind of like it had released. It was like almost like that whole experience was now complete and there was that closure and I could move on. So yeah, that was my little moment of of now having that whole experience. And since then, it's been such a beautiful what's the word? I feel so at peace now knowing that my role in this lifetime is not to have children, and I'm totally okay with that. And I love my life so much because now I'm like, I don't have to worry about anyone else. I can travel the world and I can do what I can be a little bit selfish in this lifetime, which is so good for me, and do my yoga, do my meditation, not have anyone interrupting me, go for massages whenever I want to. But I also feel like my purpose in this lifetime is to support other women and to hold them in a space when they're feeling stressed, because I just don't live that life anymore. And I really believe in living this life that's slower and more simple and more connected to ourselves and our intuition and our body. And I believe, yeah, my purpose in this life is to support other women, to encourage them to feel the same way and feel nurtured and nourished and held.
I love that. And I love your work so much because I think it can be so hard to do that, especially to stay like individually accountable to that, like self accountable to that. And to have someone like you support that journey and just stay accountable to slowing down. It gets really hard to do that, especially like, you know, we're outside the city. Like my office is in the city and it's always such a hustle and grind. So it can be, you know, hard to slow down or give yourself the permission to slow down. So I love that you're doing that work and you're offering that support to women. I'm curious to know, and I think this is important for other women to hear, is how did you sort of that closure, like release, you know, and I would say you were a mother because you were, but how do you release like, well, yeah, you were. I mean, you were like, absolutely. Like you had that connection 100%. Like, um, but what I think is so great is that, you know, from your initial message to our calls to now, it's like you are so confident in that there is so much life, even if you're not a mother, and there is so much fulfillment. And was there a point for you that there was, maybe it was after this yin training, but like there was like, okay, like this is my journey up to this point, and this is what life is going to, this is how my life will be fulfilling or purposeful or passionate, and really not getting caught in I'm not, or I know you shared like, you know, a lot of your friends have kids and not getting like caught in comparison, just really like being grounded and grateful in your life and your journey.
Yeah, sure. A big part of my healing journey throughout most of my life, I'd say half of my life, has been very much focused on my own personal development, my own healing and natural healing as well. And so yoga and meditation have just been huge for me. Like I say, like yoga and meditation have saved my life, you know, multiple times. And so my meditation practice is like every single morning I meditate, no matter what. Like that has to happen, because that I know definitely helps me be calmer, but it also helps me connect to, my higher self, my intuition, and just living the life, like keeping me on my path. So that's the meditation, and the yoga is definitely more about the movement and moving my body and keeping my body healthy, eating well, sleeping well, all the lifestyle tips that we always know we should be doing. So very, very important. But a lot of it has to do with getting help. And my big thing, thank goodness I was in a space where I knew a lot of healers. I'm friends with a lot of them. We did a lot of work together, and it takes time and energy and money to invest in that. But we can't, if you don't do that work, then the grief and the feeling like we're not enough, feeling like we're not worthy, all of that stuff is just going to be there for the rest of our lives. And so we really got to dig deep into that space and work with a coach or a mentor or healers that can help us unpack that all to a point where it's not such an emotional charge anymore. Like now I go to my friends' birthday parties and all their kids are running around and I'm like so happy for them. But there were moments when I actually couldn't be around them when they were newborns, because it was too hard for me. It was too much of an emotional charge for me, and I was like, okay, I'm very happy for you, but I just can't be in the space. Whereas now I'm just, it's so beautiful for them. And actually, to share the story, that the friend that came with me to the doctor initially to go and talk about the egg freezing, she landed up having IVF and having a child through the IVF with that doctor. And her little boy just turned a year old now last week. So it's like lovely success story from her side. And that's why, like, we don't know what our journey is going to be. And there we are sitting at the doctor's office, many, many years ago, her and I, and she's now gone through that whole route, had the baby. My story is like very, very different, but we're both happy with where we are right now. Well, I don't know. He's just turned one. So I think she's getting to the point of being happy. I think she's still getting there.
She's sleeping. She's sleeping again.
She's still sleeping.
It's like this idea. Yeah. Like her story is a success story and your story is a success story too. And they're just different paths. And I think that's creating that framework for women and that mindset that, you can define success to look any way you want. Your life can look any way you want. And I think it's like, the work that you do, the work that you've done for yourself is so helpful to reframe that, it doesn't look one way. And if it doesn't look that way, it doesn't mean it has to be an unhappy or unfulfilled life. So I think that such an important work that you do, important messages that you've put out, and you've lived it, you've healed it, and you can pay it forward. So I think that is so, so amazing. Yeah, and share more. I'm curious, like, so you do work with a lot of women. I want you to share like where everyone can find you, how maybe to work with you, or if you are doing retreats again, and maybe just one success story that you have. Yours is obviously it's a success story, but like maybe another woman that you've worked with that struggled with these same narratives or comparison, or I'm not a mom, I want to be a mom, and how you helped her maybe get to where you are, where it's like life is still beautiful, even if it didn't look how you anticipated.
I'd love to share so many stories. We might be here all day. But I think one of the biggest things that I do with working with my clients is discovering what their life blueprint is. And I can do this with women in one session. So we literally have like a 2-hour session where we go through their life blueprint and we look at their roadmap and what the action plan is going forward. So it doesn't have to be like, I have got a beautiful 3-month coaching program, which is really goes into all the depths and steps that we've been speaking about. But the one-off session is just a wonderful way of figuring out what is my particular blueprint, because we're all different. And for me, learning that for myself was such a game changer, because actually in my blueprint, there's like all these archetypes are all about freedom and independence and creativity and being like the traveling butterfly, and there's not really a lot there about being a mom. So I was like, okay, this isn't too bad, then I must just embrace that and not feeling like I've let anyone down or I'm a terrible person of society because now I'm not, fulfilling this role of being a mother. So really owning who I am, and there's a lot of healing energy in there though. So like very much the healer, but not necessarily the mother nurturing energy. So knowing that for myself was so groundbreaking, because then it's also giving myself permission of going, it's okay if I don't have a 9 to 5 job and I don't have a white picket fence and a house and a family. Why can't I live wherever I want to? Why can't I travel the world? Why can't I live in Bali for 5 years like I just have, and do work that I love? And I'm about to get to my mid-40s and absolutely love my life, and that's okay to say that and to own that. So learning more about ourselves is so important, because who knows where you are with your blueprint. And once you've discovered that, then it's so much easier to go, okay, this is who I am as a person and my personality, and then going, what are the steps going forward? What do I really want to focus on? What is that roadmap, and how do I get there? So that's the one session that I do, which is super, super, super powerful. And then, as I said, then I've got a 3-month coaching program as well. And then I also run my retreats. What we've just recently been doing is doing more one-on-one Bali retreats, so private retreats and VIP retreats. And this is especially for women that have maybe gone through their own like eat, pray, love, experience, or wanting to experience that, or just got divorced, or wanting to fall pregnant, but are needing to relax, needing to focus on themselves, needing to feel nurtured and nourished. And then I take them to Bali. We're there for like 7 to 10 days, depending on how much time they have. And they are just totally pampered and nurtured. So everything is organized for them. All they need to do is rock up. And we go to the islands, we go to Ubud, we have amazing like sound healing, spiritual healing. And it's just the most incredible experience. So that's also like what I really love doing, is being able to hold women's space, for them in beautiful paradise. But essentially, what I just love supporting ladies. And the best way to connect with me is to really download that free checklist that I said, because it gives a lot of insight in there. So it's literally sharniquinn.com/checklist. And it's just go download that. Then you're part of my community. I've then got your contact details. We can get in touch. And of course, I'm on Instagram, and there's Bali photos and videos and inspirational stuff there as well. But the best way is really just to connect. And so from there, we can see what the listener, what they are going through and how I can support them on their journey.
Oh, that's so incredible. And just like the different options are so incredible, right? Because it's not one size fits all. So maybe it is the one session, maybe it's the 3-month coaching, maybe it is the one-on-one retreat with Bali, like really personalizing it. I think that's so incredible. And I just wanted to touch on one thing that you said in terms of like understanding your blueprint. Because I think what happens for a lot of women, or what women have shared with me, is that so many messages are thrown at us from a very young age that we internalize as how it should be. And really, there aren't many moments where, unless we're doing some good work or we're in therapy or we're working with a coach, that we stop and say, well, do I actually want that? Like, is that meant for me? Like, or why do I want that? Do I want that because I authentically want that for myself, or I was told to want that? So I really love what you said about when you know yourself, when you understand yourself, when you understand your blueprint and what's meant for you, from there, it's just a lot of growth, healing, more fulfillment, more purpose. So I think that's hugely important to take that step and to get in tune with yourself, because there's so much external noise and messaging and inner critic and all these things that like lead us away potentially from what we're really meant for.
And I would love to share 2 stories actually from clients of mine, if we still have time to do that. So the one lady, she was one of my private clients that that I coached over 3 months. And she was from Paris and corporate world, big corporate lady, and she was engaged. And she came to me in an absolute panic going, I don't know if I want this. I don't know if I'm, want this life where it's just busy, and eventually we worked through the whole process, and she realized that she was engaged to someone because her family really liked him, not because she was actually in love with the guy. So through the whole process, she had broken up with him, she had left the corporate job, and at the end of this beautiful 3-month coaching program together, she realized that she wants to have more freedom. So she was kind of on the same blueprint as me, where it was like freedom. She was in her mid-30s. She wasn't ready to be a mom yet. And she was putting all this pressure to be that at that age. And she was like, I want to travel the world. She came to Bali. We actually met up in person as well, which was amazing. And she's now in like the health and wellness industry, and she went and studied hypnotherapy, and she's flying. She's doing so well. And the biggest thing is that she's so happy, and she's now in a relationship with someone where she said, he really sees me, and I feel so safe and seen, which she didn't feel before. So such a beautiful story. Yeah, really stunning from that side of her finding her freedom again. But then I've got another story from a client of mine who was on one of my Bali retreats, and she had already had a child, and she was desperate to have another one. And she had been through, I think, 5 miscarriages and 3 IVFs, and it was years of trying, and it just wasn't happening. And on the retreat, I teach ladies about meditation and breath work, and we go do yoga every morning, but we have fun as well, and we also, it's yoga in the mornings, cocktails at night, so it's a fun retreat when we're there. Obviously not if you're pregnant, but yeah. And so she was battling to fall pregnant, and then when we were working together, the big focus for her was about being healthy, not focusing on falling pregnant. And she went to this one Indian doctor, and he was teaching her some breathing techniques. And she said to me, she goes, Shans, the stuff that you were teaching me was actually like, it really is legit. These doctors, I was like, I know, like, might not listen to me, but you'll listen to a doctor, which is fine. And she landed up, her focus was on her health, her happiness, her well-being, and she landed up falling pregnant naturally and having 2 more kids after that. So it's just,
oh my God.
I know. And the third one was a total surprise. So that was not meant to happen. But that's what happens when you look after your wellness.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a similar call today about that. And we were talking more focused on nutrition, but like just these benefits, not just to fertility, but overall, when you take care of yourself and like you get clear on what you want, what you need, what your body needs, and just removing the stress. Like stress is so harmful to us, to our bodies, to fertility journeys. So those are amazing stories. I appreciate you sharing them.
Pleasure. And yeah, I mean, my mission is to inspire women to stress less and live more, and whatever that means for them, but to be here to support them in that process. Mm.
Oh my God, I love that. Stress less and live more. Oh my God, that's incredible. Well, thank you so much for, first of all, for reaching out to me, to listening to this podcast, to now being a part of this podcast. Everything you have to share is so inspiring and so helpful. And you're obviously doing amazing work with the women that you work with and offering so much. So we'll definitely direct people your way, and we'll put everywhere to find you in our show notes so more people can work with you and benefit from everything that you have to offer. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Beth. I love your show, and I really appreciate being on and connecting with you and your listeners. And yeah, maybe we'll meet up in Bali one day.
Oh my God. Yes. No, I would love to. Let's do a retreat.
Take some ladies to Bali. Oh my word, that would be incredible. I think we need to plan that.
Ladies to Bali. All my ladies in the room. My team is like, yeah. Oh my, no, I mean it. Let's do it. I would love to do that.
That would be incredible. Future goals. We'll start planning.
Future goals. Let's manifest it. Oh, I love that. If you like the episodes that you're hearing and you want to hear more, please subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more incredible stories and tools.
When I froze my eggs at 37, I felt alone, I felt unsure, I felt confused and uncertain. And when you're considering such a big decision, feeling those ways do not feel good. So we have created a step-by-step guide to egg freezing so no one else has to feel that way. If you are considering egg freezing, if you're curious about what the process looks like or what you should be thinking about, then this guide is for you. We were really thoughtful in how we put it together. I think it's a great guide. I think it's really comprehensive and covers a lot of the things to be thinking about, to be considering, and maybe some things you didn't even realize you should be thinking about or considering. The goal is to not have anyone feel alone in this journey. So if you're thinking about this decision, sign up through our website, quiettheclock.com, and make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at quiettheclockpod. This is a very big decision, so I don't want anyone to feel alone in it. So if you're thinking about it, grab this guide, and you can also DM me with any questions. I'm here to support you through this decision and this journey.